there and tell people about what you're doing. Last time we did this, we had almost 5,000 people read it and share it and say how much they liked what you were doing and write thank yous to you guys. So read some praise about what you're doing, okay? So you can go on there. We'll have it there by tonight. Okay, I'll start with a few things. I am Julie. This is Jody, another one of our trustees who helps us. That's my husband, Rick. See back there in the green shirt? Okay, we're just a tiny little group because this cemetery was abandoned. If you came here in the early 1980s, all the grass was taller than me. The headstones, a lot of them had been pushed down. Now, this just shows you what you can do as volunteers. As a group of neighborhood volunteers, we've taken over fixing and taking care of the cemetery for the last 35 years. And now, do you see all the trees and everything? It didn't have almost any of those trees. Now we're a national arboretum. So that means we've got lots of different kinds of trees. So this is a great place for you guys to be building your birdhouses. Yes? How do you get buried here?
How do you make room?
Oh, well, actually, how do we make room? We actually have enough room in here to bury 6,000 people, but we already have about 5,800 buried here. We have enough room for about 200 people left, and then the cemetery will be full. So and the reason why we have that many people is the cemetery started in 1855. Okay, that's hard to calculate. Anybody can figure out how many years that is? Is it over 100?
Definitely.
Yes. 145 plus 17, okay. That means it's 163 years old. Can you imagine? I mean, when this started, it was before the Civil War. So just imagine that. Yes. You know what? I don't know the name, but the oldest person buried here died in 1792. Now, if you're thinking, wait a minute, this didn't even open until 1855, that's because back then most people had 100+ acre farms, and when they died, they were buried on their own farms. But then as people started to sell off farms, they were what's called reinterred. They were moved and buried here. So the oldest death date we know of is 1792. Oh. Okay, the question is, do people ever get moved out of here? We have had only one person ever get moved out of here, and that's because she was a 5-year-old girl who died, yes, a long time ago. She died in the 1920s, and her family ended up moving to the East Coast, and 8 years ago, they wanted her buried with their family, and we did that. So we moved her. We didn't move her all the way. They hired a service to move her. That's not a cheap thing to do. I might have to hold off on questions, sweetheart, till the end. I'll take some till the end, just so I can tell you a few things, okay? So I said this started in 1855. You see that building right there? One day we hope to restore the roof to what it used to look like. It used to have 3 sides, and on the other side it had like a little dormer, like a window over the round circle in the back that has the date it was established. It was built in 1879. And something has changed that we used to do. Back years ago, I know, do you see the butterflies? We have been planting lots of plants for bees and butterflies because do you know they're really endangered? So we're trying to plant, a lot of what we're planting is milkweed, which is what butterflies must have to put their cocoons on and lay their eggs. Well, I'll take one more question, then we'll hold questions till the end. Yes, sweetheart. Yes, it is an apple tree. And what you'll find is if you look down there, for the apples that fall, they're always covered with little honeybees and butterflies. They love the fruit. So you'll notice later if we walk past that, it'll be like that. One quick thing I'll tell you, see how there's a hill rising up to this building here? Okay, well nowadays we can even dig with backhoes. You know what those are? We can dig with backhoes even when the ground is frozen. But even when I first started here, the man I worked with, he hand dug the graves. Can you imagine how much of a job that is? Well, the ground was frozen then, and we could not dig the graves until the ground would unthaw. So years ago, there used to be a road that led up to a basement of what used to be this chapel. I don't want to creep anybody out, but we would store the bodies in there until the ground thawed, and then everybody got buried in the spring. So you'd have your funeral when you had your funeral, but you get buried when the ground was thawed if you died in the winter time. It's all filled up now. Don't anybody get creeped. There's nothing scary about the cemetery. I've been in here 31 years. People ask, what's happened that's scary? Nothing, ever. It's the most peaceful place you can come. I promise you that.
Ghosts, zombies?
Are there zombies? I'm not a zombie believer. I'm thinking no. But you know what? Who started this group? They were called the Independent Order of Oddfellows. And they called themselves Oddfellows because back in the 1800s, people didn't just give money to causes or belong to various things. They took care of one another, but they didn't form groups to do that. But these guys formed a group to take care of war widows and their children. So if somebody's father died in a war, they would give them money for food. They would help out these women who no longer had husbands, help feed their children. And one of the things that they did was they built a building where our library is right now. That was the first public school in Mount Washington. And it used to face Beachmont. And want to hear what's kind of wild? The school that you are in started in 1932. Well, that building was donated by the people that started this cemetery. All the kids, if you guys had gone to school there in 1932, this is how they did the move to your school. Everybody had to carry their desk. All those blocks, then they had to come back and carry supplies. They moved the chalkboards, blocks and blocks. There were no moving vans, there were no dollies. All the kids had to carry everything that was in the school to your new school. And that happened in 1932. That was the year the water tower was constructed. And the last year of the school that used to be up there, I had a man on my tour once before who was over 90 years old, and he said at Christmas time, everyone knew that was the last year before they were going to tear down the school. And he said up in the second floor window, they put on a carousel and it showed Christmas pictures onto the lower part of the water tower that was being constructed so you could see winter scenes.